Welcome everyone to Getting Started with ForeFlight. This is our monthly webinar where we go over a lot of things that new users need to know. Today we're going to give you an overview of the app. We'll walk you through how to set up your first aircraft in ForeFlight. We'll look at several key parts of the app that you'll use every time you plan a flight. And then we'll walk through filing your first flight plan. We've got a lot of great presenters lined up for today's webinar. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Kendall. I'm a member of the pilot support team here at ForeFlight since 2021. I have been flying all over the country in GA for about 9 years and instructing for about half that time. And recently I have done some wing walking up in Sequim, Washington.
Hi everyone, my name is Archer Hasbany. I am a software engineer on the Sync team, and I've been with ForeFlight for about 2.5, 3 years, and I have my PPL. So really excited to be with you guys today.
Hey everybody, my name is Austin Thurmond. I'm on the pilot support team here at ForeFlight. I've been here since 2020, and I've been flying since 2018. Since then, I've grabbed my private, my instrument, and this summer I knocked out my seaplane rating up in Alaska, which was a lot of fun.
Hey everybody, my name is Alex McMillan. I've been with ForeFlight for about 2 years now, and I've been instructing for about that same amount of time. Really happy to be here to answer any questions that you guys may have, so send them on in whenever you get them.
My name is Jay Wiles. I work on the marketing team here at ForeFlight. I'm a student pilot and I've been here since 2021. Before we look at today's agenda, I want to go ahead and mention that we're going to be using a Pro Plus subscription for today's webinar. Now that's our middle subscription plan, but almost all of the features that we use today are going to be available to customers on any subscription. If they're not, if they require Pro Plus or Performance Plus, we'll be sure to put a graphic like this up in the corner of the screen so you'll be able to know. So on to today's agenda, we're going to start by showing you how to navigate ForeFlight. Then we'll look at setting up your downloads to make sure you have the charts and data that you need for the regions that you typically fly in. After that, we're going to walk through setting up your aircraft, including setting up a performance profile to help you get more accurate time and route and fuel calculations. And then we're going to get into planning your first flight in ForeFlight using both the Maps and Flights tabs, and we'll take you all the way to filing it. Now after filing, we're ready to fly, so we'll look at some of the useful in-flight features and post-flight features of ForeFlight as well. And then I'll come back and briefly touch on some of the features that many of you can use if you've purchased a Pro or Performance subscription plan. And then all of us will share some of our favorite tips and tricks that are easy and useful and that many people who've used ForeFlight for years may not even know. After that, we'll wrap up with some Q&A. Before we begin though, I'm going to mention you can ask questions during today's webinar using the GoToWebinar message panel on the right side of your screen. We have a team of people standing by to respond to you, and I'll also take a few of the more popular questions that come in and ask them to the group at the end. And I want to mention we tend to get a lot of questions during this webinar, especially as we get toward the end. So if you have a question, I'd encourage you to submit it as soon as you think of it. If your question isn't answered during today's webinar, you can always send it to us at team@foreflight.com. It may be some of the support team members that are on today's webinar that respond to you. And if you encounter any technical problems during today's webinar, go ahead and try leaving and rejoining. That usually fixes it. And if you're watching this webinar on a mobile device, go ahead and try switching to a computer. We find that GoToWebinar just tends to work better on computers rather than mobile devices. And lastly, today's presentation is being recorded and it will be accessible at foreflight.com/webinars by this time tomorrow. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Austin, over to you.
All right, thanks Jay for the introduction. Let's go through a little bit of app navigation. So when you open up ForeFlight Mobile for the first time, it'll come to the Maps page. You'll be seeing a view similar to this, and there'll be quick filters off to the left and tabs along the bottom. We'll get into those quick filters soon. But I want to go through the tabs on the bottom. So you can select through each one. There's airports, flights, weight and balance. And I'm not going to go through each and every one of these today, so make sure you carve out some time to dig through each of those, and those will send you to different parts of the app. What I do want to point out is if you go in the bottom right, you select more. These will give you even more views. So you have your default tabs that are listed on the bottom of the Maps page. And these can be changed. So if you again select more, you can go up to Edit Tab Order. Let's say I want imagery. I want that much higher up on my list. I want it as a default tab. So I'm going to tap it, the little hamburger menu, drag it up next to airports, and I can select save. Now back on my maps page, you see we now list airports and then imagery. Another little trick is that the tab to the left of more is called a dynamic tab. And for tabs that are not listed on your default menu, it'll show the last tab that you visited. So if I select more, devices, pulls up devices, and let's say I want to go back to maps. It's going to leave devices right there next to more. And I can do that with, say, custom content. That's custom content. Let's go to flights. Again, it leaves that custom content tab right there. Easy for you to quick reference. So it gives you one to kind of mess with if you easily want to get back to that tab. Another thing here is your account information. So we're going to go to more. We're going to scroll down to account. And this is where you're going to find information about your subscription and the device that you're on. So you have your name here, device you're using. Today we're using a Pro Plus subscription. So whatever subscription you have purchased, it'll display here as well the expiration date. So if you're wondering how much time left do I have until I have to renew, you can come right here and view those. So there's a high-level overview of the app navigation, and now we're going to kick it over to Archer for downloads and settings.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. So now we're going to take a look at the download settings. So just like Austin was just showing you, I'll go down into more. And up on the top right, you'll see two options, downloads and settings. And first, we'll start with downloads. So this is where you can configure all of the different chart and data downloads for ForeFlight Mobile. So the first place we'll take a look is the actual data settings. So this is where you can turn on, top level, what kind of IFR or VFR charts you want, what kind of diagrams you'd like to download, the terminal procedures, and then which regions you'd like to download the high resolution base map for. So if you're only going to fly in the United States, that's probably the only one you need to have on. But if you plan to take a trip anywhere else, this is where you could come and turn on the high resolution base map for that region. So going back into the main download settings, we can also go into the specific regions we want to have downloaded. So in my case, I'm in Texas. I might only really need Texas and maybe the bordering states like Louisiana or Oklahoma downloaded. But depending on where you want to fly, you could go through and download any of the specific states that you'd like to download. Something to keep in mind that we'll show off in a little bit is the pack feature. So if you don't have a certain region downloaded that you're going to fly to, as long as you set up a flight plan with ForeFlight and use the pack feature, we'll download all the necessary charts along your route. You could also go through and select Canada or Europe or Australia as well, but for me, I only need the Texas regions. So yeah, and once you've configured your region settings, you can take another look at any of these different required downloads or high resolution terrain for the whole United States. And then depending on what regions you have selected, they'll show up in the taxi diagrams. And then if you have any expired downloads, you'll get a little indicator saying, you need to update these specific downloads. And then if you have any downloads that are out of date, the download button in the bottom right will be blue to indicate that you can tap there to download anything that might be out of date. And now I'm going to pass it over to Alex to tell you about setting up an aircraft.
All right, now let's go into setting up our aircraft. Obviously, this is going to be a very important step when it comes to flight planning. So you'll want to make sure that this is your aircraft is set up correctly and as accurately as possible. Today, we're going to just go ahead and set up a Cessna 172. I'm an instructor. I fly a lot of 172s, so I know them pretty well. And I feel like it's a pretty common plane out there, so we'll just stick with that today. If you have any technically difficult aircraft to build in the app, you can always email us at team@foreflight.com. We can help you out with that from there. So to get to the aircraft tab, you may notice on my screen I have it here in the lower right hand corner. Now that's because this is the last tab that I opened up before going back to the maps page or any other tab for that matter. But if you can't find it here, let's say we have something else. Oh, of course, I tap on aircraft. We have something else open. You can always tap the more tab down here at the bottom right and find aircraft there if it's not already at the bottom of your screen. Now, once we're in here, let's go ahead and set this 172 up. I'm going to go ahead and press the plus button up here at the top. And I'll come up with a tail number. Let's do November 54321 and look at the aircraft type from there. All the call sign and serial number and all that stuff, you can enter a serial number. If you want to set up a call sign for your aircraft, that's something you'll need to email us about, but just stick to the tail number if you are not really sure what to write into those boxes. Next, we'll look at aircraft type. Now, this is really important. Make sure that you actually choose the correct aircraft type here, because if you choose the wrong one, you're going to be missing out on some features that are going to be really helpful. Like you might be tempted to go ahead and hit C-172 for the Aviones Columbia here, but you're not going to have stuff such as your weight and balance profile that will be automatically built into the app for you. Or if you're on a performance plane, you won't have those performance profiles that are automatically built into the app for you. So make sure you're under the correct type of aircraft. I'm going to go ahead and pull that down. And anything for a Cessna 172 or any kind of Cessna aircraft, look for the Cessna aircraft here. Now I'm going to go down and find, what have I been flying a lot lately? I've been flying the Echo model. So I'll go ahead and use the Echo model here. All right, now that I've got this up and going, I can move down. I can choose the aircraft category. Obviously, this is going to be an airplane. Or I can choose the aircraft color. I'm not going to change it because in this world, 54321 is a white aircraft. We can also put in the home airport. I'm going to say 3 Tango 5. I've been flying out of there a lot lately, so let's do 3 Tango 5. And then we can choose the airspeed units and length units from here. Now, these are going to be important because this is going to factor into the actual planning of your aircrafts and the planning of your flight plan later. So you can either choose between knots or miles per hour, or you can choose between inches, feet, meters, millimeters, or centimeters. I'm going to keep it to knots and inches because that's what I'm used to, but feel free to change it around to however you see fit. Specifically for your type of aircraft, you might want to take a look at the POH and see, oh, all of the numbers here are in miles per hour. Maybe we should adjust to that. All right, next really important thing here is going to be the performance section. You're going to need to enter one of these. Now, if you have Pro Plus and below, you're going to have to build your own basic performance profile. And of course, for 172, it's pretty easy, and I'll go ahead and walk you through it here. So I'm just going to name this my Cessna. Oh, and of course, it wanted to let me know that the filing setup is complete. Thank you, ForeFlight. So, my Cessna. And let's take a look. So this is going to be in climbing, true airspeed, and knots. I'm going to say that's going to be about 73. That might not be entirely accurate. Again, folks, I'm just doing this as purely as an example, but 73 is about what I remember is correct for that aircraft. We'll also look at climbing fuel per hour. Now, if you're a newer pilot and you're flying an older plane, this is always kind of an important thing to think about. Do you want to throw the numbers directly from your POH into here? I'll let you make that call. Me personally, I'm going to err on the side of caution and maybe add 1 gallon per hour, 2 gallons per hour more for something like a climb when it comes to a 50, 60-year-old aircraft, especially if I'm not super comfortable with my flight planning skills yet. So I'll go ahead and throw in 12 gallons per hour here. And the climb rate, people want to say 500. For this aircraft, I'm going to say about 400 because realistically on a hot day, especially here in Texas, you would be lucky to get 300. So we'll throw in 400 just to be nice. Now, our cruise true airspeed and our cruise fuel per hour, these are the only two required to be entered. However, I recommend filling everything out as close to as accurate as you possibly can, because if you don't, you're going to be getting bad information on your nav log later and bad information for your flight planning purposes later. So it's always important to really take this part of the building the aircraft seriously. That being said, I'm going to throw in 2 random numbers that I think are about correct because we're doing a webinar. All right. And then the descent fuel per hour, we'll say it's about 6. And descent rate, we'll go ahead with an even 500 feet per minute. Okay, perfect. Now I'm just going to go ahead and make that default so that whenever I am creating a new flight plan, this is the first thing that pops up. All right, excellent. We've got our performance profile put in there. We look at our best glide speed and best glide ratio. If you're choosing one of the aircraft that is like kind of the correct aircraft to choose from, this is going to automatically be added in. So, you know, there's probably no reason for you to change either of these, but you might want to check your POH and verify all information just like you always will anytime that you're creating or using an EFB. I'm going to say the default cruise altitude, we're going to put it at 3,500 because, like I said, summer in Texas. All right, and the maximum ceiling, 12,500, definitely not in Texas. And this next portion right here, the weights portion, this I want you to pay attention to and make sure all the information is correct, especially things like your basic empty weight, your max takeoff weight, and your max landing weight. Now, you may see that the max ramp weight is a little bit higher. What we're taking into consideration there is your max takeoff weight of 2,300 pounds plus 1.2-ish, more like 1.16 gallons of fuel for the taxi purposes. So that 1.2 gallons equals about 7 pounds. So that's why we give you a max ramp weight of 2,307. And max zero fuel weight, this one I want to kind of point out because this causes a lot of confusion. If you do not see a maximum zero fuel weight listed in your POH anywhere, if it doesn't exist, keep it the same as the max takeoff weight. We can go into more detail about why that is in the Q&A if you do have questions about it. However, just trust me on this one. Keep the max zero fuel weight the same as the max takeoff weight. You'll be good to go. Now, you also can change the weight units here from pounds to kilograms. It's up to you whether you want to do that, but that's also going to reflect in your planning purposes for later. One of those planning purposes being the weight balance profile. So if you do not see this green add WMB profile here, it's because you have not enabled enhanced weight and balance. So in order to do that, and now you may not see it on my screen because I have a slightly different type of account than you do, but you'll want to go to More, Account, ForeFlight Labs down here. And once again, like I said, you won't see it here, but on your display, you should see enhanced weight and balance, and you'll want to make sure that that is enabled. So enable that, tap on Add Weight and Balance Profile, and then go ahead and tap on one of the arrangements, like 4-seat arrangement or whatever it says for your aircraft. Now, check that out. You already have all of your stations entered. You have your CG envelope completely built. It makes it very pilot proof, very easy to get through. All you have to do is add your basic empty weight and then add a basic empty CG. I'm going to say 38 inches. You know, that might not be completely accurate, but once again, this is just a demo. Now you might see that it goes beneath your envelope like it does here. If it does do that, you can always change the bottom down here. So the 1,500 pounds, you can always change that to reflect the lowest empty weight. You'll want to verify that, but most of these weight and balance profiles, the envelopes are built from a certain weight down. This is your forward and aft CGs. So on this aircraft, I believe it says from 1,950 pounds and under, your forward and aft CG limits are going to be 35 inches and 47.3 inches. So you can always just change that down, or just know in your head that it's going to be within the CG limits if you're below it. Okay, moving right along. You can then choose your fuel type, fuel units. It's 1.17. There we go. And then you'll want to build out your all of your different FAA equipment, filing equipment, and all that stuff. If you have questions on that, please email us at team@foreflight.com. There are so many different variables I just do not have time to go through today, but we'll always be happy to help you out and get you up and running. Furthermore, moving down, you've got the dinghy. Whether or not you have a dinghy on board, we do not. We're in a 172. And any emergency equipment. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and make this default. Now, if I wanted to, I could copy this aircraft and it'll make an exact copy, or I could delete the aircraft from here. So I'll kind of show you what that looks like. And you'll see an exact copy was made. I'll go ahead and scroll down to the bottom and delete that for you. And now I'll go ahead and hand it over to Kendall so she can talk to you about the maps. Kendall?
Thanks, Alex. Looking at our maps page, it is selected down here at the bottom left. We have map selected. And currently, I just have the aeronautical layer turned on. To see what type of layers that you have enabled, you can tap at the top left on our layer selector. As you can see, the aeronautical is currently highlighted. But on both sides of this layer selector, you have a number of different map options as well as weather or traffic options. So one that we'll explore for a minute here is our aeronautical layer. So as you can see here, this is a dynamic map layer that will show you all different types of airspace, airways, and is a great tool for different types of situational awareness. This can be overlaid as VFR or IFR maps for the US or Canada or anywhere else, and they are currently not intended to replace any sort of charts, but just to enhance any of the charts that we currently offer. So to figure out more information about any sort of airport, we'll zoom in right over here and we can tap on Tyler, Texas right here. So as we tap on any sort of airport, we have this pop up on the right-hand side that tells us this is Tyler Pounds Regional. And it gives us all the other additional information about this airport, whether that be just info in general, weather, procedure, or even NOTAMs, and it can continue on through FBOs. So to talk a little bit more about the different layers that we have selected, I'm going to tap close on that pop-up on the right-hand side. Then I'll come back over to here to the aeronautical layer and I will select the icing layer. So the icing layer is only available for our Pro Plus subscribers. So we may have to zoom out just a little bit because we are here in Texas. We can also select the altitude, which would have helped me out a little bit here, and that is found on the right-hand side with this slide setting. I'll go back to about 15. And then as it loads up, you can see that up here, close towards Michigan and Wisconsin, we do have a little bit more ice going on. I can tap this play button down here, and it will tell us the different types of severity of icing through this area through the next 16 hours, as you can see as it crosses over this Midwest region. So we have the light to severe icing. Anytime I press pause here, it will stop that movement. So the next layer that we're going to take a look at is our traffic layer. So when you are connected to the internet, you will have this option of the traffic layer right here on the right-hand column. So while that's selected, I'm going to click out of that, and then I'll zoom in just a little bit to kind of give a little bit of an easier time to see more information about airplanes that might be flying in this area. So all of our traffic information is provided by FlightAware. And if I select one of these little airplanes that happen to be flying over here, we can see as it's currently moving along. We can see tail number, we can see the current heading, speed, any other information about it. So this happens to be a Northern Air cargo aircraft. I'll tap off to the side, and this can be done on any of these little aircraft that happen to be in the area. So this happens to be an American Airlines flight. The next layer we'll take a look at, tapping back on the layer selector, I will deselect traffic and I will select NOTAMs. So any NOTAMs, as you can kind of see here, popped up in the background whenever I selected this layer. So whenever I want to know more information, we'll say about this NOTAM right here. We'll tap just on the inside of that and we can see that this is a NOTAM that is for exercises that are scheduled in the area. It is currently active. You can see the active dates right there at the very top, as well as any of the additional information that you may need to know about it. You can tap close so the side view will disappear. The next one we'll take a look at is our AirMet, SIGNET, and Central Weather Advisories layer. So we'll deselect the NOTAMs and we will go ahead and select that layer. So as we can see here on the map, we got a few that popped up. And if we want to know any of the extra information about these, same idea, we're going to tap on that line right there. We can see that currently this is for a convective storm that happens to be in the area. And additionally, it will show all the other information, the current times, when it was produced, and everything else. Tapping closed on the little pop-up on the side, we'll take a look at a few more layers that we have. So one of my favorite, especially for flight planning, is going to be our flight category layer. So as you can see, as this is selected, we have a lot of different colors that come out here in the background. For the most part, this area seems to be VFR, marginal VFR, but up here at the very top, you do see a airport that is IFR. So this is just giving you a breakdown of the current information from the METAR in this general airport. So if we select that while we have the flight category layer turned on, you can see that the weather automatically pops up so we can see more of the current information for that airport. Tapping closed and going back to our layer selector, I'm going to scroll down slightly, and one of the other layers that I like to use for any sort of flight planning is going to be our fuel layer. So as this pops up here, you can see all the different prices that we have for fuel. While this is a great layer, you as pilots yourselves can also help for any of this information that we have. So say for instance, I happen to go to this airport right here, and I notice that they have recently changed their fuel price. So I can select this FBO, and you can see right here, it even tells us if we want to add, confirm, or change a report of any sort of pricing, we can actually tap to select here. We can report a change, or we can confirm the current fuel there is actually going to be $5.25. So we'll tap back and we will exit out of that for right now. So tapping on our layer selector up on the top left, we'll scroll down slightly, we'll take off the fuel layer. So on ours, we may have the same amount of layers that you have, or more or less, depending on what current plan that you are on. And this can all be checked at any point in time, as was said earlier, over here on the Bore and Accounts page to confirm which subscription you are currently on. The next thing we're going to take a look at here on the Maps page is going to be our flight plan box. So our flight plan box is going to get a more in-depth look, as well as a flight plan itself when Austin goes through this in a little bit. So for right now, I'm just going to close that back up again, and I will tap this gear button right here, which is our map settings. So we have a lot of different areas in the ForeFlight app that contain settings. Typically, each page will have some sort of settings. This one does as well. So screen brightness is readily available here, as well as inverting any sort of chart colors or anything like that. As we kind of scroll down here, we can always customize the aeronautical layer, so the layer that is currently on. That means we can turn on or off things like heliports or seaplane bases, just depending on your current ratings and needs for each flight. As we can continue to scroll on down, we have different options for our auto center mode. All that this means is whenever you're flying along and you see your plane on the map, it's just where that plane will actually be. One of the big ones that I really do like to have on is whenever I'm flight planning, I do like to see the extended center lines of any runway that I'm looking for, as well as enabling breadcrumbs, which is a good backup for any sort of track lock that you may have. The second biggest one that I highly suggest everybody has a look at whenever they turn on is the layer selector down here. You have multiple selections. So I currently have that enabled, and the best example that I can give is whenever I go into the layer selector like we were earlier, I have the option of being able to select more than one layer without this drop down closing. So as I do that here, we'll turn on clouds and traffic, and then I have to tap outside of that drop down for the layer selector to disappear. So a good example, going back into our settings, if I turn off this setting, so multiple layer selections off, I'll go back over to this layer selector and say I want to turn off both clouds and traffic. I go to tap traffic and it immediately closes. So this is a good way to customize your experience and make sure that you don't have things like that turn off or on. So I'll enable that back again. The third one that I would highly suggest everybody have enabled is right here under the aeronautical portion of settings is quick filters. So quick filters, as you watch on the left side of the page, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. This is something that would be enabled or disabled when the aeronautical map layer is turned on. With quick filters turned on, I have great access to being able to turn on things like any fixes that I happen to have in the area, as well as any terrain, turning on or off highways as additional assistance for whenever we happen to be flying as VFR pilots or anything like that. But I would say easily this is a great thing to have right here on the side so you're able to see more or less information. So the next thing that we'll talk about on our maps page, very briefly, we'll touch on the fact that this next little bit is going to be synthetic vision. Currently, as you can see, I do not have any sort of synthetic vision device connected. That would be something like a Sentry. Later, we'll have Austin take a look at that, and Austin and Jay will both give us some more information on it. So I'll disable that for right now. And then the next thing we'll take a look at is going to be our instrument panel. So as I tap this next symbol that does look like an instrument you'd have in your airplane, take a look at the bottom of my screen so you can see when it's enabled. As all this information kind of loads up, you can see that I have a couple of different things that I'm currently tracking. So height AGL, my track, my accuracy of whatever device I'm currently using, or if I happen to be connected to a device. So as this information comes along, and say for instance, I was no longer interested in wanting to know my current flight time as I was flying. I wanted to change this instrument to be something else. So I can tap this. We can scroll through and see, well, I can change this to a couple of different things. Maybe I want to know what the current Zulu time is instead of my flight time. So as I tap right here, you can see that the current Zulu time is displayed. I'll go ahead and close the instrument panel. And then I will open up my routes. So my routes can be anything, as you can see here, between my favorite routes, which are flights that I've planned with frequency, and I just happen to go the same route every single time I go for my $100 hamburger, or anything that we have all worked here to make this webinar for you guys. It can also be any of my recent flights. So these are flights that you just happen to type in and maybe scrapped because you didn't like the way that it was put. These can also be whenever we select these flights. You can see that in the background when I select it, it automatically pulls up that flight as well.
All right, thanks, Kendall. So with that new knowledge in mind, we're going to create a route on the maps page. So with your maps page open, if it's not already, in the top, we'll select the FPL box. And today we're going to go from my home airport of Lockhart up to Stephenville. It's going to be a barbecue town, up to Hardy Barbecue in Stephenville. It's the best. So there's a couple different ways that we can add a route into our FPL box. I can tap into the FPL box and type in 50 Romeo. Hit the space bar and that'll add that waypoint to our route. Or if I see it on the maps page, you can tap on it, select add to route, and that'll add it to your route. So come up here and find Stephenville. So again, I can type it in. Or just select add route, which this one's saying remove route, but same principle applies. So you can kind of see an outline of the route that we'll be flying today. You'll notice we're going to hit some airspace up here. So to get around that, we can what's called rubber band a route. And so rubber band a route allows you to alter your flight path if you need to get around some airspace. So we're going to grab the center of the magenta line, drag it to where we'd like to place the user waypoint. We're going to let go, and we're going to tap the lat long coordinates, and it's going to add a user waypoint there. That looks a lot better to get around that airspace. So you can zoom out, view your route, and there you go. So we're going to go back into the FPL box. Now, since there's only one aircraft on our account, so we have November 54321 that Alex created for us, and that is by default in the top left of your FPL box. But any other aircraft that you add to your account will be listed here. Below that is the performance profiles. So Alex created my Cessna performance profile. If there are any other performance profiles for that aircraft, again, they'll be displayed here. So if you want to make something that's a little more high performance, high performance flying, you can create one there. If you want some more economical, you can kind of pick and choose. And so those are important to give you like the most accurate fuel and time calculations when you're creating these routes. Now below that is our altitude advisor. So in the bottom left, you can select that. And this is going to pull in winds aloft data to show you time en route and fuel burn. So I like to get up a little bit higher, only burning maybe an extra gallon. Getting up at 6,500, it's already selected, so put that in there. And then starting from the bottom left, we have our distance, our estimated time en route, so now we're 18 minutes. Our estimated time of arrival of 4:47, and that is because if you look on the kind of the bottom right here in our ETD selector, we have that set for the 12th, leaving at 3:30 p.m. So you can close that out. If you do not see an ETA in the FPL box, just go and check that you have a departure time set. So if ForeFlight doesn't have a departure time, it doesn't know what time you're going to arrive. So with that information, we have 12.2 gallons burning and a tailwind component of 11 knots. Now just above the routes, the ETD is the routes tab. This is more for IFR flying. It'll give you ATC cleared routes and preferred routes. It really makes things a little bit easier when you're planning for those IFR cross countries. But today we're going VFR. So those won't apply to us. And above that is the procedure tab. So in here, again, it's you can load up different approaches. So at Stephenville, they have the RNAV approaches on each side. But today we're flying VFR. But we do have the traffic pattern procedure. So we're going to select that. It's using the latest wind information saying runway 14 is going to be your best wind. So we'll tap that. And you could add in a 45-degree, cross midfield teardrop, or if you want to do just a direct, you can select those and then add them into your route. And it'll paint it right there on the maps page. So with that, we have the profile view, which is going to be in the bottom right of the FPL box. We'll select that. If you're a pro or a performance subscriber, you'll have the profile available to you. And this is going to show you your different airspace, different obstacles. So today, you see, looks like we're just going to nick the Charlie airspace of Austin. Now, we're good pilots, so we're going to have flight following, but I want to stay clear of their airspace, and I want to plan for that. So just like before, when we were clearing looks like the Mo is just south of Stephenville, we're going to use the rubber band method to get around that. So we can grab our route, grab the center of the magenta line. We'll drag it out west. We'll stay clear of San Marcos as well. We're going to let go, and we're going to tap on the lat long coordinates to add a user waypoint. And we'll open our FPL box again, and we see we're no longer conflicting with that airspace. There's our altitude set at 6,500, and I'd say we're pretty much set on playing in this route. The last thing I want to show you is to pack for the flight. Now, it shows that briefcase with the exclamation point on it. We're going to tap that. And what this is going to do is pack all this weather information, fuel pricing, NOTAMs, all around the route of your flight. So if we plan for Lockhart up to Stephenville, it's going to get all the weather NOTAM information for our trip and keep it on our device. That's important because if you aren't connected to an ADS-B device, if the charts aren't downloaded to your device, they will not be with you when you take off and you're no longer connected to the internet. So what this does, it keeps it on your device for I think it's 3 or 4 hours through the duration of your flight, so you can reference it quickly. So we've planned for our flight, we've packed for it. Now let's send this over to Archer on the flights page.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. So what you're looking at here is that same flight plan that Austin just planned, but on my map view, which I have in dark mode. It's a little easier on the eyes in my opinion, but hey, it's personal preference. So what I'll show you now is sending this over to the flights page. So I'll tap the flight plan editor here up in the top left, and that familiar send to button right here is what will allow me to send it over to flights. And so this will jump me over to the flights page. And all of that information that Austin just filled in on the maps page will automatically pre-fill over here. So you can see the distance, estimated time en route, ETA, flight fuel, and all that kind of stuff is automatically populated for me here. And a lot of people ask, what's the difference between planning on the maps view and the flights view? And I think one of the key differences is this HTML briefing here. So if I tap this briefing button, it'll go ahead and download all the necessary information that I'll need along my flight plan. So weather, SIGMETs and AirMets, the different taxi diagrams, the weather synopsis, NOTAMs, all of that will be pulled up in this really easy to digest graphical format. Something worth noting is the briefing feature is available globally, but this nice format is only available in the contiguous United States. So unfortunately, if you're planning a flight from United States to Canada, you'll still get all of this information. It just won't be like this. But this is a really, really nice way to just kind of get the whole picture of your flight ahead of time. So one more thing I'll touch on the actual briefing is if you're not seeing that graphical briefing format, you can go into More, Settings, and type in Briefing Format. And you can see I have graphical HTML turned on, but if you want this in the PDF format, you can also change that there. All this other information is exactly what Austin planned there in the maps page. You can see the same kind of overview. You can pick a route just like you could from the maps page. And one of the other key differences between the flights view and the maps view is the ability to file. So once you're ready to fly your flight plan, or file your flight plan, I should say, you can go ahead and tap this Proceed to File button in the bottom right, verify that all of this information looks correct, and then just click File. And once you get your clearance back from ATC, if the flight plan that you filed looks good, this will all be the same, but if you get a edit, this will also populate back in this view. So a really, really easy way to plan and file your flight plans here from the flights page. You can edit a VFR flight plan after you file it, but you have to be connected to the internet to do so, and then activating and amending is kind of different based on your local rules. It's also worth noting that this filing is only available in the United States, Canada, Europe, and Australia. But it's worth noting that if you do want to use this in countries that are not supported, you can go and press the Send To button in the top right, click Share PDF, and this will generate you an ICAO flight plan that's at the bottom of this PDF. And now I'll hand it over to Alex to tell you about Inflight.
So now that we filed our flight plan, let's go ahead and get the plane ready for flight. So we'll go ahead and take you through step by step. Let's just kind of go through a simulated flight in our mind. So what's the first thing you do when you get to the airport, besides fill up with coffee at the FBO or something like that? You're going to want to go ahead and go through and pre-flight your aircraft. And what do we use to pre-flight? Checklists, or we should be using checklists. So we'll go ahead and start with the checklist page. You can see mine is already here at the bottom. So I'll go ahead and pop over there. And you can see I've already kind of built a lot of different checklists. Let's make one for our 172E. So C172. We don't have one for the 172 Echo, but I know that the 172 November is pretty much the same airplane with, maybe different flaps. I think the flaps on the November are going to be electronic and the Echo are going to be manual. So we'll just go ahead and open that. And again, this is for demo purposes. So let's just check it out. So I'm going to attach this to our aircraft here by hitting that look up aircraft button. And then I'll go ahead and tap done. Now that we see our checklist down here, I can go through and verify everything is correct to my aircraft. Obviously, I'm using a different model checklist than the aircraft that I fly. So I'm going to want to really go through and verify each one of these steps to make sure it agrees with my aircraft. And you can do this by taking a look in your POH. You can do it by looking at another checklist that you rely on and already have verified is correct. But just make sure that these two kind of agree with each other. Now, a lot of people, especially when I'm teaching, will say, I like having my paper checklist. I like kind of taking a look at it and having it, I'm used to it. And, as an instructor, I will say, do what is most comfortable for you when you're flying the aircraft. However, when you're with an instructor and you have that bit of a safety net of somebody watching over you and watching your every step, that might be a time to start kind of practicing using something like this feature. And the reason I like this feature so much as an instructor is it's one, it's very easy to use. The UI is great. If you want to pop through your pre-flight checklist inspection, we can look and say, okay, control wheel lock, done. Ignition switch is off. Avionics power switch off. You can go through and just tap through them, or you can either tap the speak button, skip button to completely skip this step, or the check button, which will go through and actually just check them off for you. You can always also reset your entire inspection and to save time at the beginning of the day. Furthermore, you can edit each one of these different items here by tapping the edit button at the upper right corner and changing something. Say you want to, for the baggage door, it says check. You might want to change that to lock so that you don't forget, or something like that. Obviously, this is not as extreme a change as some of them could be, but there might be certain things with your aircraft that you might want to add as a remark, at the bottom. Hit edit, and you might want to add some notes, make sure to stow, or something like that, so that later on when you're looking at this checklist item, you remember to stow that control wheel lock, or you remember to start your timer for an IFR flight, or you remember to do your GUMPS checklist when you're coming in. Different things that you can do to make it really catered to your aircraft and catered to your experience. Now, what I love about the checklist is the emergency section. It makes it so much easier. You can just tap that emergency, or you can tap this icon in the upper corner. Either one works, and it'll pop you over to the different types of common emergencies that you might have. Again, you can cater it to what you want, but what I really like about this is it kind of goes in a logical timeline as to what you might have happen or have occur. I'll have my students for their takeoff briefings go ahead and just go directly into here and talk about, hey, if I have an engine failure during a takeoff run, I'm going to take my throttle, put it to idle. I'm going to apply my brakes. I'm going to retract my wing flaps. I'm going to take my mixture to idle cutoff, my ignition switch to off, and my master switch to off. And then I'm going to talk to ATC. Make it really easy to go through. You're not having to memorize a whole bunch of stuff. Obviously, these are things you do want to have memorized on a do list. However, it makes it really nice to be able to just take a really quick look and just like that, have the answer right at your fingertips. Furthermore, different things like if you do have an engine failure during flight, the very next emergency that it has is emergency landings without engine power, which is great. set up for your convenience. So I love this feature. I really think it's great. It's completely editable. And if you do have an aircraft where you're not able to find a checklist catered to you, shoot us an email at team@foreflight.com. I can't guarantee that we'd be able to get that put in there for you, but we're always trying to expand the number of aircraft that we have on this feature. So, all right, so we're done with all of our pre-flighting. We've gone through our checklist. Everything looks great. What's the next thing we're going to do? Well, we're going to talk to ATC, right? So, well, maybe we won't talk to ATC yet. Next, we're going to get our ATIS. So let's go to the scratch pads. And obviously, I was flying to Denver as filed. We can, so from here, we can pick from a bunch of different templates. I'll usually use the draw scratch pad here, or the craft. I actually use craft because I'm more often going to be flying IFR than VFR if I'm flying by myself. And then we'll also look at, we could also look at this ATIS one here. ATIS one's great. I mean, you don't have to write down all of your information. You can do it in a very easy manner. I still use the craft one because I'm just used to that page. But some people like this so that, for the sky, instead of having to write broken, overcast, or anything, they can just boom and then write in their number here. So really cool feature. Makes it easy to have all your information right there. And you can always just go back to the scratch pad later and check out what you'd written down previously. All right, now let's go back to the maps. We're getting ready to go. We want to, let's say we're taking off from, we'll say 3 Tango 5. How about that? Coming to 3 Tango 5 here. So a couple cool things that I like. The way that I like to have my map set up is, first of all, I usually have it on the base map. Now that's just for me. I recommend that when you first get started, going through private pilot and everything like that, that you have the VFR sectional up, so that you can kind of verify what you're seeing with your flight plan versus what the sectional is saying. But I just use the base map for my flying. And I'll have the aeronautical layer up so that I can kind of see all the different navigational features that I might want to use or might pertain to me that I might miss if I'm just looking at that VFR sectional. So a nice thing about this too, the more you zoom in, you start to get a taxiway diagram at your different airports. So really cool, useful feature, something that can help you follow along while you're taxiing, especially when you are unfamiliar with a specific airport. So I highly recommend going to more and making sure that aeronautical is displaying. Next, I like to have extended center lines added onto my maps. So you'll only really see this if we go ahead and put in a flight plan. So let's go ahead and do that now. Well, we're not going to be flying in Canada today. So let's fly 3 Tango 5 to, we'll go to Waco. How about that? So with that put in, if I look down and make sure that my extended center lines are enabled, which they are. Oh, I think I just disabled them. I sure did. All right, then we can zoom out and we can see how they display here. This makes it really, really nice. Especially if you're flying to a new airport and you're like, man, I cannot find this airport anywhere. It makes it nice to be able to just kind of line up with that airport and see where those runways are supposed to be going. So another thing I like to use is the own ship distance rings. This makes it really easy to kind of stay situationally alert, get ready to find where your next the next point in which you need to call up ATC or call somebody up to let them know, hey, we're coming in. Let's take one more look down here at some other nice things about the aeronautical layer. For instance, right here, if I were to tap and hold in here, I could see that there is a parachute jumping area in here. I can also see that it moves from the surface to 1,500 feet AGL, which doesn't seem very high, but that's where it goes. And any additional information about that. So we can see stuff about our different airspaces, including our special use airspaces when using the aeronautical display. So I think that that's very handy. Another cool thing that we have is the airspace alerts and the destination weather frequency alerts. The airspace alerts are going to be super handy. They're going to let you know within a certain distance that you are approaching a specific type of airspace. Of course, this is great for situational awareness so you don't accidentally bump into a Bravo or something like that and get into a lot of trouble. Another nice thing is with the destination weather frequency alerts is when you're within a specific distance from an airport within your flight plan, it'll actually pop up and give you the frequency for your AWOS, ASOS, or ATIS as you approach that airport. So very handy for keeping ahead of the plane while you're doing a cross-country flight. One more thing I want to point out is we do have NOTAMs and TFR graphically displayed on our map. If you have them actuated, like I just showed you right there, you can see these. If you Let's see if we can find one actively right here. San Angelo. So it looks like we've got, what do we got going on over here? We've got a TFR in San Angelo right now. Um, so this is of course we all understand that the TFRs are extremely important to keep abreast of and always know ahead of our flight plan that we're going to be staying clear of them. So this is going to be more so for your flight planning, but I will say that you can also, if you do have ADSB, you can also view the TFRs in flight. Speaking of ADSB, if you are connected to an ADSB in flight, there are a lot of great uses you can use with ForeFlight. For one, it provides in-flight traffic and weather situational awareness. So for the traffic in the United States, it can either be transmitted from aircraft to ground towers or aircraft to aircraft. But outside the United States, it can only be transmitted aircraft to aircraft. For the weather, it's only going to be in the United States, and it's going to be provided by ground towers. Now, here are the different weather products that you'll get using ADSB. You get NexRad, METARs, TAFs, AirMets and SIGMETs, CWA, PIREPs, special use airspaces, NOTAMs, cloud tops, icing, lightning, turbulence, winds, temperatures aloft, and freezing levels. So definitely a lot of good information that you could have for your in-flight flying, and can keep you safe. Now, something as a CFI, I just have to mention, ADSB is not meant to puncture through storms. This is for avoidance and not for tactical flying. So just make sure that if you do see anything heavy or anything crazy out there when you're using ADSB, it's always safer just to turn around. That being said, we'll go ahead and take a look at all of our post-flight stuff with Kendall. Kendall, take it away.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is some of the post-flight features that we have here at ForeFlight. So tapping more on the bottom right-hand corner, we will select track logs from the views here on that right-hand side. So you can see here that we have a great track log that was pulled up for us that Jay did. All the track logs that we have available on this particular test account can be seen here on the left-hand side. We're going to keep with this Century Plus track log right here. So whenever we find a track log or we get a track log that we've done on a device, you can see a play-by-play of any of the altitude or speed right here on the right-hand side. This can also be selected for anything else that happened to be done during this flight. Because Jay recorded this on a Century Plus, he does have G-Load available here as an option for us to see what we're doing. This can also be changed to pitch or bank or anything else that happens to be available in here. I'll go ahead and leave that on speed and altitude for right now. Jay also did a lot of time here on the ground during this track log. He told us that there was something going on the runway, so they had to hang out for a little bit. So you can kind of see here on the map up here, there's a little bit going on here on the ground. Because we don't want to record all of that time on our track log, because we're just kind of looking for the flight information, we're going to tap Edit down here on the right-hand corner. And we're going to kind of edit this track log so it's a little bit closer to just the flight time. I'm going to tap Done whenever I'm complete editing that. As you can see here, it's just more of the flight information about the altitude and speed. Because we edited this track log, that does not mean any of the information that we took out, so all that time sitting on the ground, has disappeared completely. If we ever wanted to add that information back, we can tap that Edit button again, drag that scrubber along, so all that information appears again. I'm going to move that back. And then at any point in time, if we wanted to see our track log in movement, we can hit that play button down here. You can see there is a little bit left out here on the ground. And then it goes through the entirety of Jay's flights, or Jay's flight for that day. Because this was a training flight, you can see here we have a couple of different maneuvers as he goes along during his flight. And we can always hit pause, or we can always move this scrubber here along so you can see a little bit more of what he's doing. So one of the next things we want to make sure of so you have a track log for your flight is go into More. We'll tap Settings. And then just to make things a little bit easier, using that filter button up there at the top, I'm going to type in Track, just so track logs come up. On this device, and for yours, hopefully, we have that enable start and stop and enable auto start and stop. So during your flight, when it detects that you are at an airport and that you have been above 40 knots, that your track log will start to be enabled. This can also be double checked manually if you go to the Maps tab. And then over here on the left-hand side, you can see this record button. I'll tap it as an example. Once it's highlighted and that counter begins to count up, it means the track log has started to be recorded. If at any point in time you want to go ahead and stop that manually, you can tap that record button again and the track log has stopped recording. We're going to go back into the track log that we have here from Jay's flight, and we are going to send that to Logbook. So to do that, we make sure that this track log is selected, and then up here in the top right-hand corner, we're going to press that Send To button. So with the Send To button selected, we're going to hit Logbook because that is where we want to send that to. So now that we've sent this track log to the Logbook page, up here at the very top of this logbook entry, because it automatically generates one, you can see that our track log is here. We do have the option to add or change the current track log. So if we were on a cross-country flight and the track log stopped recording in between times you got fuel, this would be a perfect opportunity to go ahead and add that additional track log on. But we're going to go ahead and hit cancel because this is just the one flight for us. Next, we'll scroll down through here. We'll double check that the date is correct, as well as any of the other additional information that is automatically added onto this track log. So we'll make sure that we have the correct aircraft information in here. If it's not, we'll go ahead and go in here and we'll select any of the other aircrafts in here that correspond with that. If we landed at a different airport en route, we'll go ahead and type that information here. As you can scroll through here, you can see that there is options to add any of the hobs or tack time, as well as duty times. For us, we're just looking to confirm the total time from our edited track log. So that time on the ground we were counting up, so maybe we need to add another 0.3 to this. If Jay was already a certified private pilot, we would add PIC time just from that suggested time that we have right there already. If this was cross-country, we would add that as well. We only did the one takeoff and landing that day. That is reflected right here on this side. If any instrument approaches, holds, any of that is completed during this flight, we can go ahead and add that information here, as well as any approaches that were done at the airport. Because this was a training flight, there was dual receive. We'll use that auto suggest information right here. And we are able to add an instructor's signature to this because this was a training flight. So at any point in time, if you need your instructor to sign this, you can tap Add Instructor Signature. Request signature, meaning that you can go ahead and send this to their email so they are able to sign it and then send it back to you. Or if they happen to be sitting next to you, you can go ahead and tap Sign Now and they can enter all of their certification information and sign it while they're with you. Now that we've completed adding this logbook entry, any of the other information that we have here in Logbook, we have our currency summary. So because this is a test account, we only have a little bit of information in here, like our latest flight review as well as a medical. We can always add different types of currency summaries that we're interested in. So if we want to be more specific about the aircraft type of currency, or if we want a more specific night currency, that can always be added. As you scroll a little bit further down, attuned to different settings that we have here in ForeFlight, we also have Logbook exclusive settings, as well as Logbook exclusive aircraft. So any of the information that we want to have on our reports, we want to make sure that we always add a complete Logbook aircraft to any of our Logbook entries. That way, any of our reports are showing the most accurate, up-to-date numbers. So next, we'll have Jay take a look at some of our other features and different subscriptions that we have.
Thanks, Kendall. I'm excited to walk you through some of the features that we have available in our Pro and Performance subscription plans, and it's really hard to distill down all of the great value that these subscription plans have, but to put them in a sentence, Pro Plus adds safety-enhancing terrain and situational awareness features, advanced weather forecast layers, and must-have features for IFR flying. And Performance Plus includes even more advanced forecast visualizations, 3D airport and route familiarization, integrated weight and balance planning, and takeoff and landing distances. Now you can see a breakdown of all of our features and which subscription plans they fall into at foreflight.com/pricing. So let's jump into some of the features available in Pro and Performance Plus. The first feature I want to look at is ADS-B traffic breadcrumbs. Now this feature is only available when you're in the air, or really I should say when you're connected to an ADS-B device. So you can get signals through air-to-air transmission from any ADS-B out equipped aircraft, or from ADS-B towers picking up the signals from ADS-B equipped aircraft. So in this example, you can see two traffic targets here on the map, and using ADS-B traffic breadcrumbs, I can tap on one of them and see what that aircraft is up to. As you can see, this aircraft is doing several laps in the pattern at Taylor. So this feature really gives you a great picture of what's going on around you. And I should mention that the breadcrumbs are only recording when your ADS-B device, your Sentry or whatever platform you use to receive ADS-B data, it's only recording those breadcrumbs during the time that your device can see the aircraft. The next feature I want to mention is synthetic vision. This is one that Kendall mentioned a little bit ago when we were reviewing the Maps tab. This is a screenshot I took on a flight in the Phoenix area, and if you've ever flown in that airspace, you know how busy it is. So you can see here we've got a traffic target. You can see that red arrow just on the side of the screen that shows that traffic at 10 o'clock, 2 miles, 600 feet below. And as we were flying through that airspace, that was not the only traffic alert like that. So this is a really valuable tool to give you greater situational awareness and just keep everyone safer in the air. We also have georeference plates and airport diagrams. So you can see here that this is a Jeppesen chart. You don't need Jeppesen to use the georeference plates and airport diagrams, but in this example, you can see that the georeference chart is overlaid on the Maps tab. So that lets you see your own ship, that lets you see other information about airports nearby. It can let you see traffic targets around you. It'll let you overlay hazard advisor or radar over on top of those diagrams so you can have the view of everything you need all in one place. Next, we're taking a look at Hazard Advisor. Now, this is a route in Colorado. In this example, I wanted to see what it would be like to fly this route at 10,000 feet. And as you can see, we had to rubber band the route like Austin was demonstrating earlier to get through some of that terrain that gets pretty high in those areas. Next, something else that Austin showed us is the profile view, looking at airspace and terrain. In this example, we're taking off from Houston Executive and heading up to Lufkin. And you can see in profile view, you can modify your route so that you can avoid airspace. So for example, we're staying below the Bravo shelf at Bush Intercontinental in Houston, but we're also able to climb above the Class Delta airspace at Conroe. Next, I want to get into some of our Performance Plus features. This is a really great example of the great visualizations that you get in Performance Plus. This is our dynamic winds feature. You can see as we change our altitude using the slider there on the right, we're getting different information. The visualization you see on the screen indicates the speed of the winds at each of the altitudes that we're selecting. And as we climb into the flight levels, it becomes an even more colorful picture, giving you a fantastic depiction of forecast winds at any altitude. Performance Plus also unlocks the 3D features within ForeFlight. In this example, you can see 3D airports and routes. So in this case, we're coming into Aspen, and you can see there on the right some obstacles that are shaded in yellow and red. Now, they're kind of small in here, but when you're planning your flight, that can be incredibly useful to already know where to be looking. Another great feature in 3D is forecast weather. So in this case, we're using 3D preview, looking at our route that we plan to fly, and we're able to see that there's icing on our route. And we can also use the altitude slider there on the right to see icing, clouds, and turbulence that's forecast at any altitude along our route. We can also tap the blue route button at the top, which is what's selected here. So as you're playing through your flight in 3D, the altitude slider will climb and descend as necessary. And as I mentioned, Performance Plus also includes the forecast weather products and profile view, including turbulence, clouds, and icing as well. The last Performance Plus feature I'll touch on today are the performance profiles. Now, when Alex was setting up his aircraft earlier, you may have seen all of these performance profiles when on his screen there weren't any. And that's because in Performance Plus, we're taking performance information from your manufacturer and inputting these performance profiles so that you can just select the best one that fits your needs for your flight. Now again, I want to mention that Pro and Performance also include a lot of other great features as well, and so I'd encourage you to take a look at foreflight.com/pricing down here. This link will be included in an email that you'll get later on today, so you don't need to write it down right now, but we'd love for you to take a look at what you have available to you. And the last thing I want to cover here today is I've asked our presenters for today to prepare some tips and tricks that may be useful for you that we haven't talked about yet. So guys, go ahead.
So some of my favorite tips and tricks is here on the maps page, I'll tap the flight plan box. And I'll just go ahead and type in a random flight plan I have. And say, for instance, I wanted to know a little bit more information just in this general area. Maybe I want to make a quick stop down here in Waco. And I just zoomed in a lot more, so my flight path was no longer in the center of my whole screen. So if I wanted that to be recentered, I'll go ahead and do a quick 3-finger tap, and it will center that flight plan right back in the middle of my screen so I can see the whole thing again. My next favorite tip is going to be if I happen to be getting directions or directed from ATC and they give me a direct to a certain fix or even a certain airport, I can go up here to the search bar and I can tap a D for direct, and then I can select whatever they gave me a direction for. So we'll say we're going to executive, direct to executive. So it'll take my current coordinates and it will put me direct to executive from that point. We can see that right here on our drop down.
All right, so for a couple tips and tricks that I like to show when we're out at Oshkosh, Ton of Fun, all those, is user waypoints. A lot of people don't really take advantage of those. So we'll zoom in here to Oshkosh and say I want to use a user waypoint over here at the lake. And you can label these anything you want. I have one close here in Central Texas. We have in Chandler Rock. Different places you like to fly over. But what you do for those is you tap and hold on the point where you want to add a user waypoint. And on the lat long, you can select more, save, and then you can name it whatever you like. So we'll do Osh Lake. Osh Lake. Save that. And that creates a user waypoint and puts it right on your map. With the user waypoint map layer enabled, you can now tap on that and add to your route. So you go open your FPL box, it'll show it right there, and you can tap direct to, and it'll draw a line directly from where you're at to your user waypoint. The other one that I like to do, it's not really something that you'll use in your flight planning or when you're up flying in the air, but you do have to have a route in your FPL box. So let's do, Austin to Sugar Land, and this will give you your profile view, as you normally would see. And you can actually use the 2-finger ruler method. So I like to show this up near like Colorado. But if you do the 2 fingers to add a ruler, and you open the profile view, you can drag this and see the terrain move as your route moves along the map. Again, it's not really something that you would use in a lot of flight planning, but I think it's just really cool. You can zoom in, see there's like the Bravo airspace of Denver. You kind of zoom it out. I think it's cool, and that's my tips and tricks.
One of my favorite tricks that I actually utilize on a pretty day-to-day basis is something I think is pretty cool. If you're in an area and you want to see what the local weather is like in any location on the map, you can just tap, even like here in the middle of nowhere, Texas, tap and hold, and then up here at the top right, you'll see a WX icon. Go ahead and tap that, and it'll bring up the local daily forecast for that area. I think that's pretty cool, personally.
I'll wrap up this section with just one more quick tip. Whenever I started working at ForeFlight, I got a really great piece of advice, and it kind of goes with what Alex just showed us with pulling up the weather anywhere. And that is, if you don't know what something is on the Maps tab, you can either tap or tap hold on it. So tap down and hold it there for just a second. And if you do one of those things, you'll learn more information. So let me give you a couple of examples. First of all, you can see where I'm tapping here. I just tapped because I see a TFR that's coming up, and it pulls up the information about when it's going to be active and all the information that I could need. I close that. And the next thing is, when it's not a NOTAM or a TFR, I can tap hold on the map to learn more information. So for example, I just did a tap hold within this military operations area. I can tap on it, see what airspace it covers. I can also learn more details and see what hours that it's active. In addition to those, just like we've shown you several times throughout this webinar, if you see an airport, you can tap on the airport to learn more information here on the right side of the screen. You can also do a tap hold. I'm going to zoom in really close here just to show you an example of some busier airspace. So this is the Class Delta and Class Charlie that are right next to each other here in Austin. So you can see the Class Delta for Austin Executive, and then the Class Charlie airspace for Austin Bergstrom International. And all of that was just by tap holding in that one spot on the map. So that wraps up our tips and tricks for today. Now we're going to move into Q&A. But before we do, I want to mention some great resources that we have available for you. This first link, foreflight.com/support, is where you can find thousands of articles from our support team giving you insight into how to use pretty much any feature within ForeFlight. You can also find links to different guides and other tools that are useful for you. Second, I want to mention the pilot's guide, and you can find that on the support page, but you can also go to foreflight.com/pilots-guide, or within ForeFlight, you can go into the Documents tab in the ForeFlight folder, and the pilot's guide will be the first thing right there. The pilot's guide is hundreds of pages long, but it has an incredible index where you can search for really any feature you want to learn more about within ForeFlight. For example, when I was putting together the slide earlier when Alex reviewed what information was available through ADSB Weather, I went to the pilot's guide to find that out. If you're looking at the pilot's guide in ForeFlight Mobile, you can also use the search function and search for any term you want to, and it will find it within the pilot's guide. Third, I want to mention you can register for more webinars and watch past ones at foreflight.com/webinars. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, the video from today's presentation will be uploaded to that page within 24 hours. And lastly here, you can always reach out to the pilot support team. We're always happy to help. Team@foreflight.com. If you have any question maybe that isn't answered during today's webinar, or you have a question that comes up later, feel free to reach out to us there. In addition to these links, when today's webinar ends, I'd ask that you take a short survey. Let us know what you enjoyed and what else you'd like to learn about ForeFlight products in the future. So with that, let's move on to some questions. And thank you all for submitting so many questions today. We've gotten a lot of great ones here. I'll go ahead and take the first one that we've got. The first one is, can I use my ForeFlight subscription on more than one device? And that's a really great question. We get it a lot. The short answer is yes, you can use it on 2 iPads and 1 iPhone, or reverse, you can use it on 1 iPad and 2 iPhones. So up to 3 devices, so that we've got that redundancy that is so important. The next question that we have here is, can you talk about the difference between the radar and radar beta layer? So I'm going to show my iPad here. So this is what our radar layer has looked like throughout this year. You can see it's a little bit pixelated. It's got a lot of great data coming in, but we've got this new radar beta layer here. My apologies. And you can see here it's a lot smoother than what we were just looking at. Now the 2 layers use the exact same data, but this new beta layer has lower latency. So the updates on average have been several minutes faster than the original radar layer. So it's the same data, but you tend to get faster updates using this new beta layer. The next question I have, I want to pitch this one to Alex. This one came in a little bit ago. Can you talk a little bit about ForeFlight's best functions for someone who is just starting working on their PPL, like me?
Yeah, absolutely. How can you hear me? All right.
Yep, I can hear you pretty well.
All right, great. Yeah, so I mean that's a pretty open-ended question. There are so many different things that are helpful to a new student pilot as far as ForeFlight's concerned, but I'll just kind of touch on 3 really quick ones. The first one, in your documents, if you go to more documents, scroll down, find the FAA folder. And then furthermore, you can go down into either the federal aviation regulations, you can go to handbooks, you can go to all these different types of resources here. Why don't you go ahead and tap on handbooks. From here, you can look up the ACS for the private pilots, where you can go in and kind of review all of your different requirements for, the knowledge that you need for your check ride, the type of maneuvers that you need to do for your check ride, and what those thresholds are for error. That's something that if you don't know, your DPE will be very happy to expose your lack of knowledge there. So we've also got other great handbooks in here, like the P-Hack. We've got all sorts of stuff that is going to be super helpful. I know that's not probably the answer you were looking for. You probably wanted something to do with flying, but this is just as important as the stick and rudder skills you got.
Alex, can I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
Just want to go back into this one here, and just to point out the table of contents on the private pilot, one we were just looking at a minute ago. If you go into this table of contents and you tap on one of these, it will take you directly to that page. Just want to point that out. It's really helpful. I use it a lot in our different documents. Sorry, back to you.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Super helpful. And don't feel afraid to use this if you're on a check ride. There's nothing in any regs or in the ACS or anything that says that you cannot use an EFB to look up questions that you might have been asked that you're needing to look up, or look up stuff in the ACS. Nothing says you can't do that. You know, be feel good about using this feature during your check ride. It's completely fine. Um, Furthermore, you can also import documents. One of the major things that I would say is really important to import would be an electronic version of your POH. That way you can, continuously, we don't have one here, but you can continuously study your aircraft and make sure that you have a good understanding of all the V speeds and how the power plant works and all those great things. Another thing for people starting their private pilot, I went over checklist earlier. This is a good way to, if you have your checklist built out, just go in and try and chair fly the aircraft. Especially for those emergency situations. That's going to be the big thing is, when you get into an emergency situation, what your CFI and what your DP are looking for is, are they going to be fast enough, quick enough on the draw to be able to pull all of those, different levers and flip all those switches and make sure that they get the aircraft in the, condition that it needs to be in for each selected emergency. And that's not going to be stopping at private pilot, by the way. That's going to be the rest of your career. Chair flying is a very huge part of training. So use that checklist feature to chair fly while you're at home. The last thing that I'll kind of touch on here, if you have Pro Plus, is going to be the plates feature. So if we go here and we look at our airport tab, and not only just, so yeah, there you go. And we go to our plates, we can look at our airport diagram, for somewhere that we're going to be taxiing. Especially when you first get started out, these have a lot of great information. First of all, it's going to have all of your frequencies in the upper left corner, so you can kind of study those before you get into the aircraft, have one less thing to have to mess around with when you get in there. Secondly, if you have Pro Plus on this page, you'll be able to use georeferencing and have your aircraft be shown up on the map while you're taxiing. So that way you can very easily get around the airport while following along. Now, that is to say you don't want to be heads down the entire time you're taxiing, or almost any of the time you're taxiing. So a good strategy that I always employ with my students is to use the annotation tool to actually write out your course on the chart while you're sitting there still. Sometimes having a course drawn out and it's taking the time to mentally kind of prepare for your taxi route is going to be something that actually helps you envision what you're supposed to do later, and really put rubber to road. So that's three things that I recommend using, really trying to utilize and getting used to using as a private pilot. But again, watch this webinar again, watch older, getting started webinars. We really do curtail a lot of the things to new folks. And, there's just so many different features that can be helpful for your private pilot training. So I hope that helps.
Absolutely. And Alex, I'm going to throw one at you that we didn't have come in today, but I know has been asked before. When students are soloing, things like that, they need to be able to view the sectional, but not see their location, so that they can navigate by using, charts. So can you talk a little bit about how that's possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So if if your CFI or your DP is wanting that to be wanting you to not be able to use your own ship to be able to navigate by ForeFlight, which, by the way, you shouldn't be navigating purely by ForeFlight. I just want to put that out there. This is supposed to be for situational awareness only. Don't get trapped inside your iPad while you're flying the plane. You know, this is used as a tool, but you can turn it off by going to More, Settings, and you can type in Own Ship in the filter section up at the top. And here you can see Enable Own Ship. If you want to turn that off, you can put that on Never. And your own ship, ta-da, has disappeared. So you can kind of Houdini your own airplane in the middle of the app that way.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Austin, I've got the next question for you. Is there a way to have ForeFlight continue outputting audible alerts to Bluetooth devices that are connected to your iPad, even when the iPad screen is turned off?
Yeah, good question. We get this one from time to time. The iPad does need to be awake, and ForeFlight does need to be in the forefront to get those alerts, whether it be airspace alerts, traffic alerts, etc. Some pilots will do is try to save battery. So if you're wanting to do that, you can turn down the brightness on your screen, or you can invest, what I do, in a power bank. I have one, I think it's by Anchor, and I can charge my iPad 3 or 4 times over. I use that when I'm flying if I want to save battery. But yeah, the ForeFlight does need to be in the forefront if you want to hear and see those alerts.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. Archer, the next one's for you. After getting a briefing the night before, how can I go update that briefing the next morning?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways you can do it. Let's say you wanted to just refresh only the briefing. If you tapped into the briefing, there's a small refresh button in the bottom left corner that if you tap that, it'll go ahead and download all the new information given the current conditions. It's also worth noting that if you change the estimated time of departure, that briefing will automatically update as well. And then any new sections that have changed in the graphical briefing format will have a little icon next to them showing that some piece of information is updated.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. And everyone, I want to thank you all so much for coming to today's webinar. Again, I just want to point out these links right here. I hope you didn't take the time to write them down. I should have mentioned it earlier. These links are all going to be in an email that you're going to get in about an hour. So, and all the links earlier too. So if you have any questions that weren't answered today, I know I've seen several come in the last few minutes. Please reach out to team@foreflight.com and our support team would be happy to help. Once again, thanks for coming and have a great afternoon.